And it doesn't have to be an equal thing. Right now you probably are going to take more of the load. Later they might take more of the load, or maybe they're doing more housework while you're tending to the children, or maybe they're going to actual work and you're having to do it. Hey guys, my name is Shayla. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, I talk about motherhood, I talk about pregnancy. I have a almost 7-month-old. Hi. Is it crooked? It's a little crooked. But today I've got a little babe who seems to be kind of sick. So it's still crooked. Let's fix this. There we go, kinda. So instead of trying to fight her in a chair, I figured I would just come down to the ground with her. If you are not new here, I have red hair. I said it in the last video, but I don't really expect you guys to watch all my videos. But if you are watching, please subscribe and please like if you're into granola, kind of natural, a little bit outside the box stuff. I'm on Instagram, Hey Shayla, and I have a podcast, Hey Shayla. So if you're into either of those, please go check them out. Ooh. Today I want to talk to you about it not being 50-50. So this is not like a bash towards my husband at all, because my husband is fantastic. He's the greatest dad in the whole wide world. But biology makes it so that mostly the first year, it's just not equal. And there are certain things that you can do to make it more equal, but how we do things, it's not. And I used to be very angry about it. So I like to do numbers. It helps to keep my brain organized. So I have 5 ways that it's not equal. It's just not. Sometimes, I felt like I needed to say this at the beginning, sometimes you just need to hear someone say this and you're like, okay, now my expectations are set. This is for you if you're so frustrated like I was with my first baby, and I was like, why are things not 50-50? Reason number 1, hormones. I had a friend that was like, I think we're gonna have to adopt, and honestly, I'm excited because then I can be a dad. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, I won't have the hormones that come along with pregnancy and postpartum. And I was like, oh my gosh, what a different experience. Because your hormones after you give birth do wild things. I've got a few podcasts talking about you've got all these hormones when you're pregnant, and then the baby comes out and then all your hormones just go poof. They tank. And so sometimes your mood tanks, and it's crazy. It's craziness. And I'm kind of crazy, but when I have hormone crazy, I'm bawling, and I'm like, Seth, I know this doesn't make any sense. I know that. And that almost makes it more frustrating. One thing that I did do this time was encapsulated my placenta. Honestly, that helped a lot for me. I felt like I cried a lot less. I don't know. I also need to say that I feel like my hair is really flat. We ran out of shampoo, so I used body wash. And it kind of feels greasy too, so we'll see. But yeah, just the hormones during pregnancy and postpartum are so crazy. When you're the primary caregiver, sometimes you don't have the capacity to think of very basic things, and you're like, I've got this big problem and I just can't figure it out. If you talk to the non-hormonal person, they usually have a very simple solution to these problems, and sometimes you just gotta listen to them. I remember getting kind of upset with Seth because I'd be like, no, that just doesn't make any sense, and he's like, no, it does. And then the next day I'd be like, okay, so I've had time to think about what you've said and you're right. So use their brains for things that you just can't process right now, because mommy brain is a super real thing where your brain is literally only focused on primal survival thing and tuning into your baby. So basic functions honestly are not working, because you should just be trying to take care of this kid. Way number 2 that it's not even is instincts. Biologically, you have different instincts than your husband or your partner. This goes for same-sex couples. Usually there's one that is the person that wakes up in the middle of the night to them crying, and the other one that's fast asleep. And again, on one of my podcasts, we talked about co-sleeping. She's like, this is for a reason. Mom wakes up because she needs to feed them. Boobs. If you're a breastfeeding mom, you need to feed them. Dad needs to get rest because one of you need to get rest. So when your husband's falling asleep, instead of being really angry at him, someone said 2 tired parents is worse than 1. Or it's better to have 1 Something like that. Essentially, like, one of you needs to rest while the other person, and then you can switch if that's the case. That helped me a lot because I was like, okay, you sleep so that you can function during the day, and if I need a nap, I can do that because you've clearly slept really well all night long. But that's a biological thing, right? And there's a documentary on Netflix called Baby, and it talks about the same-sex couples, how one has that turned on. And then when I interviewed Natalie on episode 37 about co-sleeping, she's like, then when I was overnights as a nurse, my husband was at home, and I was like, he's not gonna wake up. He was up all the time. because then his brain goes, oh, I'm the one who's responsible for this baby tonight. Jess Hover is a YouTuber that I love, and she said that they accidentally sleep trained their first by putting her in the crib, and her husband was gonna wait outside the door when she cried. And so the baby started crying. After an hour of crying, Jess wakes up, and she's like sitting there, like she said she's praying for her baby. She's hoping that her husband's having like an okay time consoling this baby. And then she comes out after the baby's sleeping, and he's like, no, she hasn't even woke up yet. And she's like, what? And then she was sleep trained. Not what we wanted to do, but that's what happened. So everything that you learn about parenting is like dependent on you and your lifestyle and your partner and what you want, and like there's so many options. So these, even everything that I say is just my experience, right? So then there's another thing called elimination communication, where you like potty train your infant. We started at 6 months with Leah. We're kind of starting with her. We just do transition times, so like after naps, after the car, and just try and catch them as often as we can. What it transitioned to potty training for us, because we actually did like a hard potty training at 2 years. She wasn't afraid of the toilet. That's what I've heard a lot, is that people's kids are afraid of the toilet, but she'd been sitting on it since she was 6 months. So, but they ask cultures that do that, where it's not like a thing. It's like, no, we don't have diapers. I can tell when my baby has to go potty, and then I potty them outside, or I potty them in the toilet or whatever. And they're like, how do you know when your baby has to go to the bathroom? And she's like, how do you know when your baby's tired or when they have to eat? She's like, they're like, it's the same. So clearly we're not paying attention to our kids close enough to know when they need to go to the bathroom, but that's a thing. But it's those instincts, it's those like biological instincts, right? And we're not always tuned into them because we don't live in a super biological tuned in world, but they're there if you listen and you trust them. Like, you might have them and you're like, no, that's probably not a thing. Okay, thing number 3, feeding. Hi. Potentially, you are the person that has the milk for the baby, unless like you have a low supply or there's other factors, but typically the mom is the one that's going to breastfeed the baby. If you do formula, then things can get a little bit more equally divided, because dad can help, mom can help. It's not this like need for mom, right? So this took me 2 children to like come to terms with, because when Aaliyah was little, my first, Seth would be like, she's crying, I don't know, she's probably hungry. And I was like, she's not hungry. She just ate. Can anyone else do anything for her? Like, are you kidding me? Why do I have to be the person that has to feed her all the time? Why do you have useless nipples? But with Ezzy, she'll be crying and Seth is like, I don't know. And Seth tries. Like, he wants to like comfort her and console her, and just, he tries so hard, but she just whines. And then as soon as I hold her and she's nursing, she's content. And this time I'm like, give me that baby. I will help her feel better. And like, that feels good to me, that my mindset has changed enough to not be like, are you kidding me? This baby's hungry again? Like I said, if your baby takes a bottle, mine don't, because I don't try that hard, honestly, but they didn't on the first couple goes. If you bottle feed, it'll get a little bit like more divided. More equally divided. Thing number 4, kind of just mentioned it. Comfort. You are their comfort. They know the sound of your heartbeat. They know the smell of you from when they are first born. They know like how your body sounds. They know the smell, the sound of your voice. They know all that. They've been growing with all that for 9 months. So yeah, you're going to be their comfort place. They want to see you. They want to hear you, taste you. They want to like nurse. They want to smell you. And if you're not around, they're like, where is my survival? Because human babies are born as little blobs that cannot do anything for themselves. They are 100% dependent on us. Like, horses can walk the same day that they're born. It takes these kids, what, like a year to walk? Whoops. They're born incredibly dependent on us. There's a lot of information around this, actually. Like, based on our pelvis and the head size, they have to be born now. They can't be born a year later when they can walk. So, like, they really are dependent on us. They're, like, constantly looking for mom, who they know. And your husband can be around. He can be super involved. But it's still just that, like, connection of growing in the womb that they know you. Like, ours hated. She's, like, getting better. But for sure for the first 4 months, hated car seats. Cried in them. And I'm like, it's probably because she can't see us. She doesn't know we're there. So we tried talking and she still was just like, get me out of this thing. There definitely could be other factors as well, but that's one of them, I believe, is that she can't see you. Thing number 5, things even out the more you have. And this was something that terrified me going from 1 to 2. I was like, how am I going to handle this? How am I going to handle 2 children? Sometimes Seth does bedtime with Aaliyah. I do bedtime with Esme. I'm nursing Esme. He's watching her on the couch. He feeds her. He bathes her before she goes to sleep. He does a lot more stuff now that we have 2, because it has to be divided, right? And sometimes he's working during bedtime and I have to do it all by myself and we figure it out. And I swear kids know like your capacity. When Seth's home, she likes to sleep in her own room. When Seth's not home, she likes to sleep in bed with us. I don't know. You just don't think you can do these things until you have to do them. And then you're like, oh, stressing about that was way worse than actually just doing it. I just remember a friend of mine telling me like, no, when you have the second like dad or partner gets uber involved because they have to. So my advice is to find the things that can make it feel a little more even. One partner might sleep a little better at night, one partner might be feeding them. Yes, mom might be feeding mostly, comforting a lot, but if you're pumping, dad could wash the parts. I asked Seth if he could be in charge of the trash and the recycling. Please, when you come home, just make sure that the trash and recycling is out, because for some reason, it's really hard for me to get it outside when I have got these 2 children. So if you could just be on top of that, that would be great. Or I ordered groceries. When you go to the gym, can you just swing by Target and pick them up and bring them home? It's a game changer. It takes a little bit of awareness, and that's like the hard part, is we don't have extra space to think. So that's why I tell you these like very basic things in hopes that you're like, oh. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that this gives you some peace in that things are not going to be 50-50. I'm telling you that so you can just accept it and be like, okay, then what are the things that we can do? What can my partner do that I need help with? What am I doing? And it doesn't have to be an equal like thing. Right now, you probably are going to take more of the load. Later, they might take more of the load, or maybe they're doing more housework while you're tending to the children, or maybe they're going to actual work and you're having to do it. Like, everyone's dynamic's different, so you just have to figure out what feels good for you and your family. If you liked this video, please like the video and share it with a new mom who needs to hear this. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye.